Howdy. Okay, cool. It looks like this works. All right, we're gonna do this live. So that starts with live screen sharing stuff. So hopefully that works. Let's see how this goes. Let me find stuff to share. Word. All right. Thanks, Monica. As Monica said, I'm going to talk about some AI stuff, how it doesn't fail you, I guess. Um, the kind of alternate title of this is really slap some AI on it. Put like one of these little AI icons that all of our products now have on stuff. And it's really more of, rather than how to save yourself from AI, how kind of a rant about AI. And then there may be some useful thoughts along the way about AI. But mostly it's going to be about kind of like the current state of how people are trying to use AI in products and what we may or may not want to learn from that. Okay, so a little bit of background on myself. So I am Ben. I am one of the founders of a company called Mode. Mode was a BI tool. It looked like this. It was a place where you could write some SQL and make some charts that looked like this. Mode, about a year ago, was acquired by another BI tool called ThoughtSpot. ThoughtSpot looked like this. It's another BI tool with lots of charts and fancy things. And so I went from being the founder and CTO of Mode to being ThoughtSpot's field CTO. I was out, I don't know, in the field doing field things, talking to customers or whatever. Sometime after that, about after a year or so after that acquisition, I left ThoughtSpot to explore something new, or be an advisor or angel investor or an independent contractor, or whatever it is that you want for the various euphemisms for being unemployed. And so that has been me for the last little bit, doing some like temporary stuff here and there. But most of my time, as Monica mentioned, is to some degree yelling on the internet on a blog called ben.substack.com. It's got kind of this whole vibe here. This is sort of, I don't know, for better or for worse, what I guess it feels like. Anyway, okay, so we're here to talk about some AI stuff. So let's talk about AI. So I want to go back, before getting into this, I want to go back to 2001, and not this AI of 2001, but 2001 like this, which is the year that .com turned into .bomb. This is an article, I think, from, where is it from? It's from like The Guardian or something. It's actually from December 30th, 2000, so I guess this is a bit of a cheat. But this is like when the .com bubble burst. And so the .com bubble is obviously like a very well understood thing, or well-known thing. We talk about it a lot. It's pretty famous. It's this is the NASDAQ. This is .bomb. It got up to 5,000 points, whatever, in early 2000, and then was down like 80% a year and a half later. And so obviously this is, big bursting of the .com bubble. Lots of articles about .bomb and various other things like that. But I think there's an interesting question here, which is like, was it a bubble? Like, this is the NASDAQ now. Obviously, you can see the sort of small mountain on the left where it went down and then, or went way up and then came back down, but it's gone like way up since then. And so this is kind of question here is like, was the internet a bubble? Like, was this actually a bubble, or was it just sort of the early stage dollars? And so this was kind of the peak of the .com bubble. But we all kind of know the story after that. This was what happened after that. So it peaked at like what, $25, and then a year and a half later was at 6 cents. And this is .bomb. Shout out to, what is this, Bomb Voyage from The Incredibles, great superhero name. But anyway, this is the story of like Webvan. So Webvan was this big bubble. It was around ordering groceries online, didn't work. Tons of monies were lost trying to build this. It's kind of, again, one of the famous stories of the sort of failed first phase of the early internet. But a few moments later, or really like 25 years later, Instacart IPO'd. And so Instacart of yesterday was worth $11 billion, the same as Webvan, basically the same business, basically the same product. One of them got to about a $10 billion valuation and then fell apart. Another one is currently at a $10 billion valuation. So like the question here again, like, was the internet a bubble? Is like, why did one of these work and one of them didn't? These kind of seem like the same products. They seem like the same things. What's the story behind Webvan and why it was a bust, and the story behind Instacart and why it works? Again, even though functionally they're very similar, we order groceries online and they get delivered to us. So if we go back to the 90s, if we think about what Webvan really was and what the idea behind it was, back in the 90s when like the websites were first getting started, the internet was first getting sort of popular, and there was a period where everybody wanted to build a website. And so this is like some GeoCities website. This is what things looked like back in the Netscape days. And so everybody had their website. Bill wanted his worldwide boutique of various like clip art and things like that. And so, this wasn't just weird web pages like Bill's. It was also, this was Apple's website in about 2000, or I guess in 1998. Pro Go Whoa, I guess was their slogan at the time. And so this was like the popular thing was, you have a business. Now we want to put that business online. We want to have a website for it. And so Webvan's kind of core idea was, hey, what if we took a grocery store and what if we put a website on it? And so instead of going to the grocery store like this, where you typically did, you just like take that whole thing and put it on the internet, and people go to the grocery store online, and then Webvan brings you your groceries. And so they were like an internet grocery store in effect. And that's really what they built. They built a grocery store that had a front door that was the internet. That meant they had to have warehouses where they stored all the groceries. They had to have trucks that delivered the groceries. There was a ton of infrastructure that went into building what Webvan was, because the application of it was essentially just, well, we got to build a big grocery store that's got to serve the entire country, or the markets that we operate in. And instead of people coming to the store, we'll just give them a way to browse the aisles through the internet. And that didn't work. That's really like what was the cause here was this business cost a ton of money to run. It ended up never really making money. It ended up being this enormous operation that they couldn't sustain. And so that's the reason it ultimately fell apart. And so like this idea, put a grocery store on the internet, doesn't really work. But in 2012, when the aesthetic was more like this, and that's when Instacart came out, this is what Instacart looked like. Like this is the way that Instacart approached this problem. And so there's obviously some very big differences to Instacart's way of like putting the internet or putting grocery stores online and Webvans. And one of the main ones is this. One of the main ones was when Instacart came out, iPhones were a thing. And so they could actually be able to talk to people live who were out shopping for groceries. Those people could get orders on their phones. There's a lot of things that they could do because they had smartphones that Webvan couldn't do. And so they weren't saying, hey, let's put a website on a grocery store. Like that wasn't what they were trying to build. They were saying, hey, can we use the internet and use what the internet and now sort of new technologies like mobile and stuff like that allows us to do to solve the same problem as putting a grocery store online, but like is functional or like is structurally a very different thing than what Webvan was. And so that's what a lot of like the big now sort of internet companies and sort of the Web 2.0 companies did, is they weren't just taking things that were like stick something online. They were kind of reinventing the way that we use it. So Netflix in some ways is Blockbuster online, but the reason they got really big was streaming, which obviously is not what Blockbuster did. Uber similarly wasn't just like taxis on the internet. It wasn't they go buy a bunch of taxis and operate all those taxis. They figured out ways to have other people drive those cars and to connect you with them and to do things through mobile and things like that. Again, same with Airbnb. It wasn't go buy all the houses in the world. It was like, what if other people had houses that we could rent, and we could basically connect people who are looking for short-term places to stay with hosts. And so like if 2000 was put a website on it, was use the internet to just like, okay, we take the existing stuff that we already do and we just put it on a website. This was like put a website on it, but do it with a smartphone over this kind of ubiquitous high-speed internet that everybody has access to in a world where we have social media profiles and cell phones. And like there's a ton of other stuff that got built out between 2000 and 2020 that really led to a lot of these big businesses in 2020 becoming so big. It wasn't just sticking stuff online. So question is, what does this have to do with 2024 and with AI and all of that? I think there's like a fairly obvious parallel here. Back when the internet was first coming out, Time wrote news stories like this is the bold new world of the internet. Today, Time is writing news stories like this, which is AI, the future of mankind. We're in kind of the same sort of hype cycle around AI as we were in a lot of cases around the early internet. And obviously, a lot of this is driven by things like ChatGPT, the fastest growing application in the history of web applications. Bill Gates, a year or so ago, said that it was the most important advancement in decades. I think the other one he said that was like prior to as important as it was the internet. So Bill Gates is basically saying, hey, this is sort of the internet 2.0 in terms of its effect. Microsoft has become the most valuable company in the world for a bit because of a lot of the things that people are making on AI. NVIDIA obviously has sort of gone vertical because of AI, from sort of the opposite of the web van chart, going from whatever 60 cents to a $150 in 5 years because of the excitement around this. NVIDIA actually also became the most valuable company in the world for a hot minute. It was for like 2 days in June. And so because of all this, it's like kind of the same kind of hype that people went through around the early stages of the internet. Because of all of this, people are asking sort of similar questions, or like trying to develop in similar ways, where they're saying, hey, what if we took a product and we put a chatbot on it? Like, that's what got popular. ChatGPT was the big sort of introduction to this AI wave. It was the first big popular product. And so everybody's saying, in the same way we said, let's just stick the internet on top of what we already do, a lot of people are saying, what if we put a chatbot on top of what we already do? And so there are tons of examples of this. So Zoom released this thing called an AI companion. There's this little chat bot in the sidebar where like you can chat with it and ask what conversations you've missed and things like that. Jira has everybody sort of, this would be the thing that everybody would love to interact with. Jira's virtual assistant, which allows you to, I guess, chat with tickets. Workday, which is a sort of HR software, has a chat bot that lets people ask questions about HR policies. Notion, which is kind of this Google Docs type of competitor, has its own AI that it's a chat bot that lets you ask sort of like what docs are in Notion. This is Intercom's chat bot. Intercom's a customer support tool, so you can chat with it and ask for help for how to use a service. There's a bunch of internal tool chatbots that companies have built. So like PwC built a PwC chatbot for their internal team. McKinsey has done the same thing. Walmart's done the same thing. So there's tons of places where people are basically saying, great, AI is a big thing. We want our own chatbot. This also exists in the data world. A bunch of data companies have done this as well. Databricks, which is the big kind of data platform provider, has a chatbot that allows you to ask questions of your data, to ask it to help you write SQL queries or to help you find documentation or things like that. Tableau has a chatbot on the right side here that lets you make a chart for you. Google Cloud does the same thing. So Google Cloud's like BI suite has a chatbot that is for exploring data. Atlan Data Dictionary, same idea. Like there's an AI chatbot that lets you ask questions about what's going on in your data. Even smaller startups like Equals, which is kind of this next generation spreadsheet, has a chatbot to help you write Excel formulas or their equivalent of Excel formulas. And so this has kind of been the put the internet on it or put a website on it. This is what we've basically seen is AI as this new technology. What if we just take it and sort of stick it on top of the existing product? And so if I had to make a bet, if I had to like make a forecast, it is with AI that we are here. That this big bubble of like all these AI products and all these chatbots is kind of the first wave of us figuring out what to do with this technology. And chances are a lot of them aren't going to work, but there will be some other successes down the road that actually look fairly different than what we saw with this kind of big first wave. And we're already seeing some evidence of that. So like Discord, which is the kind of like open Slack competitor type of thing that's really popular in the gaming world, had an AI chatbot. It was called Clyde. They shut it down. They didn't really say why, but there have been a handful of stories like this where people have released these sorts of little chatbot features and they have slowly shuttered them as they realized like they didn't quite do what they thought they needed to. And so they were, again, kind of becoming the slap the internet on it version of this for 2024. So the last few things I want to talk about here is how to make sure that this doesn't happen to you. So how to make sure your AI doesn't kill you in case of your, I guess, Hannibal Lecter slash the guy from what is this from Westworld who built his AIs and ultimately killed him. But how to make sure your AI doesn't fail you. And sort of in the trend of this, for whatever reason, this has sort of a movie theme to it. I don't know why. That's just kind of where this all ended up. I'm going to talk through a handful of things that are like the ways to think about this that I think will make sort of how you're thinking about building AI products and stuff like that are important things to consider when you're developing this stuff. So one, for whatever reason, again, the Kevin Costner principle, we'll go with that. So in addition to there being this kind of put a chatbot on it phase that we're going through now, and a put a website on it phase that we went through 25 years ago, there was actually an intermediate phase 5 or 6 years ago that was shorter lived and perhaps a little more bleak, but it was put a blockchain on it. So what, 2017 through 2020 or whatever, when crypto was kind of having its heyday, this was a big thing where everybody's like, oh, blockchain, popular. We got to figure out a way to put a blockchain or wrap our products in some sort of blockchain related services. A lot of people did this. This is an example of it. Maersk, the big shipping company, and IBM released a blockchain product in 2018 called TradeLens. I don't know what it did. It was somehow like, we're going to do various shipping tracking stuff, and we're going to do it on top of the blockchain because that's the novel new thing. A few years after that, unsurprisingly, Maersk and IBM abandoned their blockchain TradeLens platform. So it lasted 3 or 4 years, did not go anywhere, was never really used. It was obviously something they sort of built around the hype of, great, blockchain is popular. Let's put a blockchain on it and see what happens. And so there was a little bit of like a, hey, why did this not work? I think to some degree the answer is obvious because there wasn't really an application for it. But that was like a point that they made in some of these articles, was essentially they built this product that nobody wanted. That this wasn't something that customers were asking for. It wasn't a thing that solved a real problem. It was something that was, again, kind of chasing a technology and trying to slap this technology on something that already existed. And I suspect that is what happened here. I suspect this was like Discord was like, oh, chatbots, that's the new rage. We're going to slap a thing on there. Turns out none of the Discord customers wanted it. It wasn't a thing that was actually useful, and it was very much a technology chasing a solution. And so I suspect that we will see a lot of these things. There are a lot of these products that are like this. There's a lot of various AI features that nobody asked for and nobody wanted, and somehow just constantly show up in various UIs that everybody gets frustrated with. And so, I think that this is something that obviously it's sort of an easy one to be careful of, but something that we should all be sort of watch out for is, even if you build something like this and you put some snazzy logo on it and say it's your future, people may still not want it. That you have to build stuff that people want or is somehow useful in some way that isn't just a label and some cool new thing, like whatever the Instagram search AI bot is that nobody actually wants to use. Second version of this is the Doc Brown principle, as in Doc Brown from Back to the Future. So I want to talk a little bit about self-driving cars. So self-driving cars, these are actually like sort of work now in San Francisco. I was in one recently. It was kind of wild, but only in San Francisco and like in small areas or whatever. But we've been talking about self-driving cars for a long time. Elon Musk in particular has been talking about self-driving cars for a long time. In 2014, he said they were just around the corner. 2019, he predicted they were just around the corner again. In 2022, he said they'd be available by the end of the year. We do not really have self-driving cars yet. The current Waymo stuff in San Francisco notwithstanding, Teslas certainly aren't self-driving in the way that he is describing here. And so a part of that, like, why does this not work yet, is this is a really hard problem. That one of the things I think people learned is self-driving cars can work okay on highways and they can work okay in sort of like relatively easy traffic situations. But when you introduce all the complexity of what happens in an intersection like this, which like I would have a hard time navigating, self-driving cars can really struggle. And so there's like a million edge cases that make this difficult. And so one of the sort of interesting ideas a little bit about this is, what if instead of thinking about building self-driving cars for the roads we have, we instead thought about building roads for self-driving cars? And now you can make a lot of jokes about this of like, isn't that a railroad or something like that? But I think there's a broader way to interpret this, which is once we have a technology that is a pretty good self-driving car, we can make some adjustments to it to make sure that like the roads are sort of better suited for something that has the particular set of skills that a self-driving car has that a human doesn't. And so you could imagine something sort of like this. This is from the movie Minority Report. If anybody remembers, they had these sort of self-driving cars on these roads that it's obviously science fiction, but like these roads would make much more sense for a car that is self-driving and sort of remove a lot of the barriers that would make it hard for them. And so AI can very much be the same. There's certain things that AI is good at, certain things that like LLMs are very good at, and certain things they're not good at. And we very much not design the world around that. We've designed the world for things that we are good at or sort of more traditional computers are good at. And now that we have this new technology, over time, we'll probably start to design the world a little bit for that type of technology. And this already exists a little bit in data. And so, for instance, if you think about the way that humans consume data, it looks roughly like this. This is a CSV, or it's actually like, I guess, a pipe separated values, whatever. It's a PSV, I don't know. But like if you are a human being, you can look at this and kind of roughly make sense of it. Like this is something that sort of makes sense to you. You kind of know what to do with it. If you're familiar with data, this is all stuff that looks familiar. This is actually that same file in Parquet, which is a different data storage format. It's much faster for computers. It's a much easier thing for computers to use, but it doesn't make any sense to us. And so there's a lot of like similar things like this that could happen for the ways that LLMs or the ways that AIs more generally think about problems. That when we model data, for instance, we tend to model it in a way that is semantically made sense for us. These various data modeling techniques are things that we can get our heads around as human beings, the way we think about the world. These may not be the right things, though, for an LLM. An LLM like has this amazing memory. It can remember tons and tons of stuff more than we can, but it like can't really follow directions terribly well. And so it's possible that techniques like this evolve over time to be better suited for something like an LLM or other AIs than they are for the human beings that currently use them. So that's the Doc Brown principle. Where we're going, we might not need roads. We might need something that is, again, more suited for whatever AIs are the products that we're building. All right, last two of these. The third is the Simone Biles principle. Not a movie, but whatever, she's famous. One of the other really common applications of trying to build like AI or apply AI to data problems is this. It is have the bot write SQL. This is all over the place. There's tons of companies that try to do these sort of SQL chatbot stuff like that. This is actually one of these little mini apps in the OpenAI store. This is the entirety of that app. It is 19 lines of code. It is a simple prompt that says like, you are an analyst and here are some tables and write a query for it. It like sort of works. If you give it a very basic problem and some very basic tables, it actually like can write a decent little SQL query. It does not work on complicated stuff, though. And so if you try to build this for real, you very quickly realize that this is a much, much harder problem than what this app would suggest. And so when I was at ThoughtSpot, the company I was at after Mode, very much learned this firsthand. This was kind of ThoughtSpot. One of ThoughtSpot's core product offerings was allowing people to interact with data in natural language or something that kind of approximated natural language. This was their first architecture, was essentially like write a query, have ChatGPT write out a SQL, or write a question, have ChatGPT write a SQL query, voila, you get an answer. Over time, that evolved into something far more complicated that has these sort of cyclical loops of like trying to refine that query and get a bunch of context and things like that. And it had like a training loop about trying to learn what other people had said was good before. And even this still probably didn't live up to the experience that people want with like, I can ask anything of this. You still had to ask in kind of a constrained environment. And so I think this is something that a lot of people realize is there's a very easy first demo to build of stuff on top of AI. The first things that you make often are pretty good and seem almost passable. But once you start to use them, you realize there's a ton of problems and a ton of these edge cases, sort of similar to the self-driving car case, where they don't actually solve the problem to the degree you need them to solve. And so that's how you end up with stuff like this. This was a famous story that happened earlier this year where an airline had like a chatbot for customer support. It gave bad advice. They ended up getting sued. But like, I bet if you tested this chatbot for a bit, you'd realize, hey, this thing works pretty well. And as soon as you start deploying it really widely to customers, there's all these weird problems that you don't think of that you have to solve over a really long period of time. And so this is a sense, it's a quote from Jeff Bezos in one of his like shareholder newsletters. Basically, it's about handstands. And he says that most people think that we should be able to master a handstand in a couple of weeks if you work really hard. But in reality, it is a slog. In reality, it is something that takes like 6 months of daily practice. You can't shortcut it. And so I think that's true for AI, is there is no real shortcut, that you can't just like build something in 2 weeks that's going to be magic. It's going to be 2 weeks to build kind of a demo that looks nice, but then a really, really long time to hammer out all of the little details that ultimately make the thing work. And so if you're not committed to that, or you're just trying to get something out the door for the sake of saying, hey, we slap some chatbots on it, ultimately those products are going to fail, whereas it's the ones that have like this kind of constant investment that have a chance to succeed. All right, last thing I'll talk about, the Jason Derulo principle. So on April 8th, this happened. This was a thing that was a phenomena that a lot of people probably are familiar with. This was the like complete solar eclipse that passed through the US. Also on April 8th, if you went to Google Trends, this is a map of Google Trends of a particular search. You may think that this search was like the eclipse, and probably if you looked at the eclipse, it would probably be similar. This particular map, though, is actually for the search "My Eyes Hurt," because, as you would expect, a bunch of people probably looked at the eclipse. And so you're not supposed to look at the eclipse until when it looks like this. You're supposed to look at it only when it looks like this. Don't stare directly at the eclipse. This is like a thing that everybody says. There's a similar thing, I think, a little bit with AI, where if you can see AI in the product, that product often isn't the thing you actually want. And so like EY, the accounting firm, released this EY.ai. I don't know what it does. It's an AI platform. That's all I know. It's something that's selling hype. It's very clear that the point of this is AI. You don't come to this and think this isn't AI. You don't come to this and think this is useful. You think, I am logging into EY's novel new AI thing. The best AI products are often the ones that you don't even realize are AI. They're the ones where you can't see it. So for instance, this is a part of the like Google Magic Eraser feature. Obviously, it's a little bit AI, and they put the little glitter things on it, so they make it kind of clear that it is. But the thing is, you don't care that much about the fact that it's AI. It's just like, I can erase stuff from my pictures. That's just like a neat thing to be able to do. There isn't marketing around AI in it specifically. This is another thing that just came out. This is in Adobe. It's a Photoshop feature where you can actually draw these little icons. So say like this dragon or this knight. And now Adobe actually lets you rotate those things as though they are 3D when you draw them in 2D. So it like figures out how to turn this dragon into a 3D object that you can then start to rotate and position and face different ways, because both these things are turned at kind of 45-degree angles. And the video of this demo, they were originally facing each other directly. And so they were able to like, we will just infer new drawings from different perspectives based on what you've done. That doesn't say AI anywhere. It's just like, I have this new rotation feature that has this kind of really novel effect. And so a lot of the best products for AI are probably going to be that. They're not going to be the magic AI search at the top of Instagram. They're going to be a thing that you wouldn't even necessarily know is AI when you're using it. You would just think this is a really useful thing. And so the Jason Derulo principle, the reason it's Jason Derulo principle is this was a picture from the eclipse with Jason Derulo just staring directly at the sun. It's best when you don't see it. It's best when you don't stare directly at it, but you just see its effects, and you don't actually see you're not going to EY.ai's domain. You're going to a service that you just really like that solves a problem, and AI happens to be the thing under the hood that you use. So I am just about at time. I will stop there. If anybody has questions in the last few minutes, happy to answer them. Otherwise, put a website on it. These are the various websites that are related to the things I have put websites on. Anyway, I will stop, and happy to answer questions in the next couple minutes.
Thank you so much, Ben. That was awesome. I wrote a lot of notes. The first thing I want to ask is, do you think those self-driving cars will still have the chatbot? Will we still end up putting that AI chatbot in the self-driving cars, or do you think we'll avoid that?
No, I mean, I don't know. I assume we'll play stupid little games like we do in the back of taxis.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you, Ben, and really appreciate it. And you are free to leave whenever you like. We really appreciated having you here today at Datanova.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks.